The boardroom was packed. Champagne glasses clinked as everyone celebrated a $300 million deal. In the center sat a woman in a wheelchair, the CEO. Her hands trembled as she tried to smile. A drunk partner stumbled toward her, sneering. "Stand up when you talk to me." Her voice broke. "Please, don't hurt me. I can't walk." The room went silent. Then laughter erupted. Mocking, cruel. In the corner, a man in a maintenance uniform set down his mop. His eyes turned cold as steel. "That's enough." Every head turned. Nobody knew who he really was. Jack Turner was 38 years old, a single dad, a former rescue sergeant. Now, just a maintenance guy cleaning floors in a corporate tower. Nobody looked at him twice. He wore the same gray uniform every day, pushed the same cleaning cart, mopped the same marble hallways where executives in $1,000 suits rushed past without a glance. But Jack didn't mind being invisible. Around his neck, hidden under his shirt, hung an old dog tag, scratched and faded. The words barely readable, "Honor before glory." He touched it sometimes when the building got quiet at night, a reminder of who he used to be. At home, things were different. His daughter Ella was 9, bright eyes, wild imagination. She believed her daddy could fix anything. "Daddy, can you fix my bike chain?" "Of course, kiddo." "Can you fix the ceiling fan?" "Already done." "Can you fix the whole world?" Jack smiled, ruffling her hair. "Working on it, sweetheart." She didn't know about the medals boxed away in his closet, the commendations, the lives he'd saved overseas. To her, he was just dad, the man who made pancakes on Sunday and never missed a parent-teacher conference. That was enough for him. But every night, Jack worked the late shift at Lane Tech Tower. The tech company was preparing something big, a major partnership announcement. The building buzzed with energy, and at the center of it all was Clara Lane. She was 33, brilliant, sharp as a knife, the youngest CEO in the industry. But Clara had a secret most people tried to ignore. 2 years ago, a car accident left her unable to walk. Now she led board meetings from a wheelchair, her voice steady even when her hands shook under the table. She smiled through the stares, laughed off the whispers, pushed harder than anyone else just to prove she belonged. But late at night, after everyone left, Jack sometimes saw her sitting alone in her office, staring out the window, the mask slipping. He never said anything, just emptied her trash quietly and left. Then there was Richard Moore, 45, major shareholder, the kind of man who thought money made him untouchable. He wore expensive cologne that made Jack's nose itch, spoke too loud, laughed at his own jokes, and he hated that a woman in a wheelchair had more power than him. "She's a liability," Richard told investors over drinks. "How can someone who can't even stand lead a company?" People laughed nervously. Nobody challenged him. The night before the big contract signing, Jack was cleaning the boardroom, polishing the long table, straightening chairs. Richard walked in, phone pressed to his ear. "Yeah, I'll handle it tomorrow. She won't know what hit her." Jack kept wiping the table, invisible. Richard glanced at him once, then walked out without a word. Jack set down his cloth, touched the dog tag under his shirt. Tomorrow was going to be a big day. He didn't know how big. That night, Jack tucked Ella into bed. She hugged her stuffed bear tight. "Daddy, do you ever get scared?" "Sometimes, kiddo." "What do you do when you're scared?" Jack thought for a moment. "I remember what I'm protecting. Then I'm not scared anymore." She smiled and closed her eyes. Jack stood in the doorway, watching her breathe softly in the dark. Tomorrow he'd go back to being invisible, back to mopping floors while powerful people made deals above his head. But if someone needed him, he'd be ready. The next evening, the boardroom glowed like a stage. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers. Men in tailored suits, women in designer dresses, cameras flashing. The deal of the year was about to close. $300 million. International expansion. Lane Tech's biggest moment. Clara sat at the head of the table in her wheelchair, hair perfect, makeup flawless. But Jack noticed her hands gripping the armrests a little too tight. He was supposed to be cleaning the side hallway, but something made him stay close. He positioned his cart near the back entrance where he could see inside. The presentations went smoothly. Partners shook hands. Lawyers passed documents back and forth. Then Richard Moore stood up. He'd been drinking. Jack could tell from across the room. The man's face was flushed, his tie loosened. He grabbed the microphone meant for toasts. "Before we sign," Richard slurred, "I want to say something." Clara's smile tightened. "Richard, maybe we should—" No, everyone should hear this." He turned to the crowd, swaying slightly. "We're trusting our $300 million investment to someone who can't even walk across the room." The room went cold. Clara's face drained of color. "Richard, please sit down." "I mean, seriously." Richard laughed, looking around for support. A few people chuckled nervously. "How can someone in a wheelchair lead a company? What happens in an emergency? She gonna roll away?" More laughter now. Uglier. Clara's voice came out small, shaking. "Please, stop." But Richard was warming up now, emboldened by the alcohol in the audience. "You know what? I think shareholders deserve better than a—" "That's enough." Clara's voice cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, just stop." Richard stepped closer. Too close. He reached for her wheelchair. "Maybe you should roll yourself out of here and let the adults—" "Touch her again." The voice came from the back. Everyone turned. Jack stood in the doorway. No longer invisible. His gray uniform seemed different now. Straighter. His shoulders squared like a soldier at attention. Richard squinted. "Who the hell are you?" "The janitor." Jack walked forward slowly, calmly, each step deliberate. "The guy you walked past every day without looking at. Get back to your mop before I have you fired." Jack reached the table. He pulled the dog tag from under his shirt and set it down gently on the polished wood. The metal clinked in the silence. "Touch her again," Jack said quietly, "and I'll remind you why men like me still wear these." The room held its breath. Richard's face turned purple. "You're threatening me? You're just a what?" Jack's voice was steel. "A janitor? Someone beneath you?" He looked around the room, at all the important people in their expensive clothes. "I clean your floors. I empty your trash. I'm invisible until you need something fixed." He looked back at Richard. "But that woman you just humiliated, she never treated me that way, not once." Clara was crying now, not from shame, from something else. Richard laughed nervously. "This is insane. Security!" Two guards started forward. Jack didn't move. The first guard reached for his arm. Jack's hand shot out, fast, precise, trained, and in one motion, he had the guard's wrist locked, body turned, neutralized without violence. The second guard froze. The entire room went silent. Jack released the guard gently. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I just want him to apologize." Richard's bravado cracked. You can't, I can't what? Stand up for someone who can't stand? Isn't that exactly what someone should do?" A camera flashed. Then another. Phones came out. Everyone was recording now. Richard looked around wildly. The laughter was gone. People were staring at him with disgust. "She's a human being," Jack said. His voice carried across the room. "She built this company. She earned this deal. And the only disability I see in this room is your lack of basic human decency." Clara sobbed. One hand covered her mouth. Richard tried to save face. "You don't know who you're messing with. I'll destroy you. You'll what?" Jack stepped closer, not threatening, just present, solid, unmovable. "I've been shot at. I've carried wounded men through minefields. I've seen real courage and real cowardice." He looked Richard dead in the eyes. "And you, sir, are the most cowardly man I've ever met." The room erupted, not with laughter, with shocked murmurs, gasps. Someone started clapping slowly. Then someone else joined. Then more. Richard's face went white. He looked around desperately, but the tide had turned. Jack picked up his dog tag and put it back around his neck. He turned to Clara. "Are you okay, ma'am?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack nodded once. Then he walked back toward his cleaning cart. But before he reached it, someone called out, "Wait!" A man in a military dress uniform stood up from the back of the room. His face was pale with recognition. Sergeant Turner? Jack froze. Sergeant Jack Turner? The one who saved my convoy in Syria? The room went completely silent. Every eye turned to the man in the military uniform. A colonel, decorated, his chest full of medals. He stared at Jack like he'd seen a ghost. Sergeant Turner, the colonel repeated, his voice shaking. Is that really you? Jack stood frozen. The dog tag felt heavy around his neck. Richard seized the moment, forcing a laugh. Oh, this is rich. Big words from a janitor playing soldier. But the colonel wasn't listening to Richard. He walked straight toward Jack, his shoes clicking on the marble floor. Sir, Jack said quietly, straightening instinctively, I didn't know you'd be here. You saved my life. The colonel's voice cracked with emotion. Syria, 7 years ago, our convoy hit an IED. I was trapped in a burning vehicle. The room leaned forward. Everyone listening now. You ran through enemy fire, pulled me out, carried me half a mile to the evac point while taking fire the whole way. The colonel's eyes were wet. 3 other men tried before you. They all got pinned down, but you didn't stop. Jack shifted uncomfortably. I was just doing my job, sir. Your job? The colonel laughed, but it was tinged with something like awe. You took 2 bullets, kept running. The medic said you wouldn't let them treat you until every man was on that helicopter. Phones were out everywhere now, recording, flashing. Richard's smug expression was cracking. That doesn't mean... Shut up! The colonel didn't even look at him. Sergeant Turner received the Silver Star for that action. He was recommended for higher honors, but he left the service before the paperwork went through. Clara's hands flew to her mouth. She stared at Jack with new eyes. Why? Someone in the crowd asked. Why did you leave? Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. My wife died. Cancer. She fought for 2 years while I was deployed. He touched the dog tag. I came home for the funeral. Saw my daughter standing there, 9 years old, all alone. And I realized I'd been fighting the wrong battle. The room was so quiet you could hear people breathing. So I left. Came home. Started over. Jack looked around at all the important people. Turns out there are a lot of battles right here. They just look different. Clara was openly crying now. Her whole body shook. Then she did something no one expected. She reached for the dog tag around Jack's neck. Her fingers trembled as she turned it over and froze. On the back, barely visible under years of wear, was engraved another name. Robert Lane, she whispered. Jack went still. Clara looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. This was my father's. He talked about you. Before he died, he told me about the soldier who saved him, who gave him 5 more years to watch me build this company. The room erupted in gasps. Your father was Colonel Robert Lane, Jack said softly. He gave me this tag the day before I shipped out. Said to remember that some things matter more than glory. Clara's hands covered her face. Her shoulders shook with sobs. He died 2 years ago, she whispered, right before my accident. I thought I'd lost everything. His strength, his protection. She looked up at Jack, her eyes red and swollen. But you've been here, all this time, protecting me without me even knowing. I didn't know you were his daughter, Jack admitted. Not until right now. I saw the name Lane on the building, but I never connected it. I saw someone who needed help. Richard tried one more time, his voice desperate now. This is all very touching, but it doesn't change the fact that... That what? Clara's voice cut through the room like a blade. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was fierce, strong. She wheeled herself forward until she was facing Richard. That I can't walk? That I'm somehow less capable? Less worthy? She gestured to Jack. This man saved my father's life. He saved countless lives. He's a decorated war hero. And you know what he's been doing for the past 2 years? She looked around at everyone. He's been cleaning our floors, taking out our trash, fixing our problems, being invisible while we walk past him like he doesn't exist. Her voice rose, powerful and clear. And tonight, when everyone in this room sat silent while I was humiliated, While I was mocked for something I cannot control, only one person stood up. She pointed at Jack. The janitor, the invisible man, the one person who everyone thought was beneath them. Clara's voice dropped to something quiet but deadly serious. So let me ask you all something. Who here is actually disabled? Me, because I can't walk? Or every single one of you, because you couldn't find the spine to do what was right? The room erupted, not with laughter, not with applause, thunderous, standing ovation, people on their feet. Richard stood alone in the center, his face purple with rage and humiliation. This is insane. I own 20% of this company. You can't just... Security, Clara said calmly. Please escort Mr. Moore from the building and call our lawyers. I want him removed from the board by morning. Two security guards, different ones this time, moved toward Richard. You'll regret this, Richard shouted as they took his arms. All of you, I'll sue. I'll destroy this company. But no one was listening. The cameras followed him as he was dragged toward the exit, shouting threats that got quieter and quieter until the doors closed behind him. The room exhaled as one. Clara turned back to Jack. Her expression softened. You stood up when no one else would, she said quietly, even though it could have cost you everything. Jack shook his head. Some things are worth losing everything for. Like honor? Like doing what's right. Clara smiled through fresh tears. My father said the same thing, every single day. She held out her hand. Jack took it gently. Thank you, she whispered, for saving him, for saving me, for reminding everyone here what courage actually looks like. Jack nodded once. Professional, respectful. But then something unexpected happened. A small voice called out from the doorway. Daddy? Everyone turned. Ella stood there in her pajamas, holding her stuffed bear. Jack's neighbor stood behind her, looking apologetic. I'm sorry, the neighbor said. She saw the news on my phone. She wanted to see her daddy. Ella ran across the boardroom, her little feet pattering on marble. Jack caught her up in his arms, lifting her high. Daddy, Ella breathed, looking at him with shining eyes. You're a hero, a real hero. Jack's tough exterior finally cracked. He held his daughter close, his voice thick. No, kiddo, I'm just your dad. Oh no, but Ella pulled back, looking serious. Daddy, heroes don't need capes. They just need reasons to be brave. She pressed her small hand against his chest, right over his heart. And you're the bravest person I know. The entire room melted. People were crying now. Not Clara, not just the women. Everyone. The cameras captured it all. The warrior holding his little girl. The CEO in her wheelchair watching with tears streaming down her face. The crowd of powerful people learning what strength really meant. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just in that room, but in everyone watching. The applause started slow. One person, then two, then the entire room. It built like thunder, louder and louder until the chandeliers seemed to shake. People weren't just clapping. They were standing, cheering, some wiping their eyes, others holding their phones high, capturing every second. Jack set Ella down gently, but she clung to his leg. The colonel stepped forward first. He snapped to attention and saluted. Once a sergeant, always a sergeant, he said. It's an honor, sir. Other veterans in the room followed. 5 men and women standing at attention, hands raised in respect. Jack, overwhelmed, returned the salute. His hand was shaking. Then the partners started approaching. The same people who'd laughed at Clara. I'm ashamed, one woman said, tears running down her face. I should have spoken up. We all should have, another man added. He turned to Clara. You've earned every bit of respect, Ms. Lane. Clara nodded graciously. Then do better tomorrow, all of us. Huh, the crowd parted as she wheeled toward Jack. Ella peeked from behind her father's leg. Clara smiled at the little girl. Hi there. You must be Ella. Ella nodded shyly. Your daddy is very special, Clara said gently. I always knew, Ella said proudly. He fixes everything. The room laughed. Real laughter this time. Warm and genuine. Clara looked up at Jack. Can we talk? Just for a moment? Jack glanced at his neighbor, who took Ella's hand. The little girl waved as she was led to the side. When they were relatively alone, Clara spoke softly. You never told anyone who you were. Why? Jack shrugged. Didn't seem important, but you were still protecting people, still standing up when it mattered. You just traded a uniform for a mop. Something like that. Clara reached into her jacket and pulled out an envelope. What's this? Open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an offer letter. Head of Security, he read aloud. Jack Turner. You'd be protecting the whole company, Clara explained, making sure people are safe, making sure they're treated right. Jack shook his head slowly. I appreciate this, but I already have a job. Being a dad. Then you'll be both. Clara's voice was firm but kind. This company needs people like you, the kind who stand up when everyone else sits down. She gestured around the room. They'll never forget tonight, but they need reminders every day what integrity looks like. Jack looked at the paper. The salary made his head spin. He could give Ella everything, but that wasn't why he was considering it. It's not about the money, is it? Clara asked. No, ma'am. Then what? Jack looked at Ella across the room. She was playing with her stuffed bear, innocent and happy. It's about showing her what matters, Jack said quietly. Honor before glory. He extended his hand to Clara. When do I start? The room erupted in applause again, longer this time, louder. Clara shook his hand, both of them smiling through tears. Tomorrow, she said, but tonight, you're our guest of honor. And for the first time in years, Jack Turner let himself be seen, really seen, not as a janitor, not as a soldier, but as exactly who he was, a father, a protector, a man who knew what mattered. The party continued late into the night, but the video was already spreading. By morning, 50 million people would see it, the moment a janitor became a hero, the moment power bowed to courage, the moment everything changed. 1 week later, the world was different. Jack's face was everywhere. News channels, social media, morning shows. Everyone wanted to interview the janitor who stood up, but Jack turned them all down. Instead, he was in Clara's office, installing a new security system. Ella sat in the corner doing homework, humming softly. Clara watched him work, smiling. You know, she said, you could have your own TV show by now. Book deals, speaking tours. You're famous. Jack didn't look up. Fame's not why I did it. I know that's exactly why everyone wants to hear from you. He finished his work and stood up, wiping his hands. How are you? Really? Clara was quiet. Then she smiled, a real smile. Better, stronger. People look at me differently now, not with pity, with respect. They should have done that before. Yes, but sometimes people need reminders. She paused. My father would be proud of both of us. Jack touched the dog tag around his neck. I think about him sometimes. What he'd say if he saw all this. Clara laughed softly. He'd tell you to stop making a fuss and get back to work. Sounds about right. A knock at the door. Ella looked up from her homework. A young woman entered, hesitant. She was in a wheelchair too. Ms. Lane, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say thank you. Clara wheeled forward. What's your name? Sarah. I'm an intern downstairs. I saw what happened last week. The girl's voice shook. I've been in a chair since I was 14. I've let it define me, limit me. But watching you stand up to that man, even though you couldn't physically stand, it changed something. She looked at Jack. And watching you defend her when nobody else would, it reminded me that strength isn't about what your body can do. It's about what your heart chooses. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for telling us that. After Sarah left, the room was quiet. Jack walked to the window. The city stretched out below, millions of lights in the darkness. You know what's funny? He said softly. I thought my battles ended when I left the war. I thought I was done being a hero. He turned to Clara and Ella. But maybe the real fight is here, in moments like these, where people forget what courage looks like. Clara wheeled beside him. Together they looked out at the city. My father gave you that dog tag for a reason, she said, Honor before glory. It's not just a motto, it's a way of life. Jack nodded. And some things never change. Below them, the city hummed with life. Millions of people, millions of stories. And somewhere out there, someone else was facing their moment, their choice, to sit down or to stand up. Jack Turner had made his choice. The question was, what would you choose? Subscribe if you believe courage still stands up for those who can't.